All right, you all. I'm going live today. All right, let me get set up. I had to do a topic today that I think is very important. You all have heard me speak about freedmen and immigration and how it is going to be impacting us and how it is impacting us. And we see every day, even more and more, how now utilizing freedmen, it's only helpful for us, right? And utilizing, going back to our status of what our ancestors initially were identified as here in this country, right? It is now taking on a whole new look and dimension for us, right? So not operating in black is making a huge difference, is what I'm saying right now. Even though we know black and all of the other terms are specific to us, now we're on center stage in America. We are the main characters in America, and we always will be because we are the Americans, right? So, anyway, I had to put that out there because people are saying, y'all just think you're the main characters. Hey, the Constitution. And you all, I have to say, look what I'm wearing today. Thank you to Chicago Flips Red. They made these t-shirts. I got one, and you'll see here in the heart, right in the center, it's Chicago Flips Red. And these are our Freedmen t-shirts that they sell. And so you can always go and buy one from Chicago Flips Red. And they have some more t-shirts. They actually had a great video that I loved that they were displaying all over the internet with the narration with Zoe, and then the other members of Chicago Flips Red, and they have the great picture or portrait of Muhammad Ali. Oh, I have to find that video. I think it's all on my phone and it's not on my computer because I think that's a great video and what they did. But anyway, so I'm coming to you today to speak about what is happening ongoing right now in America as far as the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship. And we know that birthright citizenship or the 14th Amendment is specific to the freedmen. But however, now we got everybody else wanting to claim that birthright citizenship is not specific to us. Doesn't make any sense to me, but that is what's happening right now. Hold on, I want to make sure that my Freedman channel is up and going. But we are at this precipice here in the United States where we know we have the setting Supreme Court justices are going to clarify the interpretation of the 14th Amendment. So we want to make sure that, we understand what is happening. And I decided to do this video so that we can make sure that we have this podcast or this video that you can come out on the Freeman channel, and you can also educate family members, friends, whomever else, because this is very, very important and it's historical. We have a sitting president, and I'm going to show it. Of course, I'm going to upload any and everything, and it's going to be off of X. But we're going to listen to the current administration and the president speak about the 14th Amendment and what it was written for, right? So I wanted to take us through a historical perspective on it. I had a discussion not too long ago, this past weekend, in a space where someone was stating that we no longer can use the freedman status. Okay, anyway, when did the Constitution change? And why is the current interpretation very important? And why has even setting Supreme Court justices referred to the freedman status in America, like in two cases or in these race cases that have come forth? We'll go over those as well. We're going to definitely dive in and talk about how the 14th Amendment and the current interpretation is being weaponized against us. And there's an actual way, war waged against us to weaponize the 14th Amendment as if it's okay for immigrants to come here on this soil, have babies, and their parents are not even citizens. Yeah, yeah. How does that add up? How does that even make sense? It's very illogical. So okay, so let's go with, let me see, I'm going to do something, and we're going to start with the history of freedmen. We have to talk about the history of freedmen. There's no other way. That's why we have the constitutional amendments, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. You wouldn't have these amendments if it wasn't for the emancipation of our ancestors, the formerly enslaved, and the Civil War. Now, you'll notice a lot of people, when they talk about the 14th Amendment, they don't want to talk about the emancipation of the formerly enslaved and their descendants, or even touch on it and connect it to the Civil War. Y'all, that's strange, right? I find it very strange. I'm just saying, how can you not connect those parts of history? So let's see, I'm going to do something. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure as I'm going over this information that you all can see both of my screens. You all know how it goes with me this technology. But I definitely want to make sure you can see both my screens. And as we continue to talk about the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment and this history, that this is a part of where you can tell that a great deal of people don't know American history, especially the immigrants. I'm going to say it. They do not know American history. And then they sit here and try to tell you, the Americans, that have these lived experiences, that we don't know what we're talking about when it comes to our history and our lived experiences, or our ancestors' lived experiences. It's really wild to me, but this is America, and this is how the dumbing down, I say, the dumbing down of America is happening. Because how can you not know certain things with the Constitution? And I found out that a lot of these attorneys have not been taught or have not learned about the Constitution. Wild. I'm going to say it's wild to me that they don't know about America's Constitution, and they are actually practicing attorneys. Come on now. How does that happen? But I'm just saying, I'm going to put it out there. So let's see. I want to make sure I'm able to, let's see. I want to make sure all of my things are together. So we're going to get started. Of course, you all know I will share screen. Okay, let's see. Okay, I want to make sure you all can see me, and we're going to go with this. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pull up. I want to start off with the actual statement by President Trump. And this is a Politico where he was being interviewed again. He is speaking about the 14th Amendment. Now, some of us have a problem. I don't know why with the president. He's saying, hey, you guys, this is for the babies of slaves. Okay, I know. He doesn't have the correct terminology, but we're going to work on it. At least he understands what the 14th Amendment is about. So that's important. And we're going to cut him a little slack with that. But, there are people around him. There are people around him that are, I do believe, are us that can help him self-correct. And I hope that happens sooner than later with the Freedmen term. So I'm going to go to the Politico interview. I wanted to find, let's see, another gentleman. Okay, we'll just go with this one because it comes up and it's from Politico. So I'm going to share my screen. I want you all to listen to the president as he talks about the 14th Amendment, right? And he's going to say it is for the baby of slaves. And we know today who are the descendants. It didn't change. I don't see how we could be different in this day and time as not being the lineage and the babies of the formerly enslaved. So I'm confused on this new terminology that we are not the freedmen, and it was only for those descendants. It was only for those descendants, but somehow we're not the descendants today. Okay, so let's see. All right, here we go. I wanted to make sure I had my video live on. Let's see. Okay, I think I found it. Oh, did I lose my stream? No. Okay, perfect. All right. And this is where we need to go. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen with you all, and we're going to listen to the president and what he says about the 14th Amendment. Oh, I got something else going on over here. I want to share. Let's see. Wasn't sharing. I just want to give me a moment, and let's see. Let's work out how I can make sure I'm able to share. It says I'm going to do, it says for kids, webcam, it's live. I want to make sure I'm able to share my screen. And it's not giving me one, I can't share my screen on one of them. So that is the problem I'm having, you all. So bear with me to see how I can do that. Maybe I can do here. I want to be able to share it all on one screen here. Okay. Oh, I got it. Okay, we're going to do it. Let's see if this works. Okay, that's not working. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna work through my kinks. All right, so let's see. Share screen. Let's see if you all can see. No, it's not going. Okay, let's see if we can do it on StreamYard. What's going on? Everything was working before. All these complications now that I want to come in and really teach today. Okay, let's see. We can get it shared on X. All right, we can get it shared on X and make sure I can share it on YouTube. All right, there, if you can see it. Yes, you can see it there. Now let's see if we can share it on YouTube and we'll be okay. We can move further. Live now. Okay. Okay, so it looks like I can share. Let's see. Share, which tab? Stop sharing. I want to share another tab. Wow. Okay. Let me do this. I didn't want to end my stream and then come back. Let's see. That's what I don't want to do. But it was all good at first. Okay, let's do entire screen. Let's see. Allow. And let's see if we can get it going over here on YouTube. Can you all see on YouTube? I don't think I have too many on YouTube. Let's see if we can get it going. Okay. So now, are we on YouTube? I hope we're on YouTube. Nope, I don't see it on YouTube. Oh, darn. Okay. We're having a YouTube problem. All right. So what we're going to do, I'll go ahead and walk through it, at least on the live, and you all can see it here on the live stream on the StreamYard. So I'm going to go ahead and play it, at least play it, so you all can hear what he is saying. And then we're going to come back and we'll talk about it. So here we go.
Case is very interesting because that case was meant for the babies of slaves. And if you look at the dates on the case, it was exactly having to do with the Civil War. That case was not meant for some rich person coming from another country, putting a foot in our country, and all of a sudden their whole family becomes, United States citizens. That case is all about slaves, the babies of slaves. And it was a good reason for doing it. And that's all it was about. And people now are understanding it. It's been explained to them. And I think the court understands it too. That would be a devastating decision if we lose that case.
That court,
because our country cannot afford to house tens of millions of people that came in through birthright citizenship. When that happened, that was meant for the babies of slaves. And if you look at the exact dates that it was passed, it all had to do with the Civil War and the ending of the Civil War. It's that little period of time, and people now are starting to understand.
Okay. All right. So you all heard what the president said, right? He is under the understanding that the 14th Amendment was meant specifically for the descendants, right? He says, you all heard him say the babies of slaves. We know he doesn't have the terminology of freedmen. However, we're going to educate him on the terminology of freedmen. So where else I wanted to go with this is I want to set it up where you all can understand how freedmen came along. We know the term freedmen is specifically to our ancestors that were emancipated. You go to your state, wherever you're located, and if it was a part of the 15 or 13 colonies and 15 states at the time of the Civil War, you're going to have an Emancipation Day, right? If you don't know that, we all have Emancipation Days for different states. Now, when I look at Tennessee's Emancipation Day, which was created by a descendant, right, or a formerly emancipated ancestor, he made sure there was Emancipation Day here in Tennessee. There's Emancipation Day in Florida. So in Tennessee, Emancipation Day is the end of slavery, and it marks the state's ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865. And in Tennessee, it's celebrated on August the 8th, Freedom Day. We call it Freedom Day, okay? Now, let's see about Florida. I say Florida because you all know I go between states. Florida is really home for me, even though I was born and raised in Tennessee. So Emancipation Day in Florida is May 20th, 1865. And it states when the Union troops arrived in Tallahassee, making it Florida's Emancipation Day. So this legal process is for minors to become independent and things of that nature. But it says it's celebrated in Florida on May 20th, and in Tennessee, it is August the 8th. So you got already, those are two states, right, that I know about, that I've lived in, that have emancipation days. So why would freedmen still not apply? But I'm just saying, okay. So I just want to lay it out for us so we understand how the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments apply, and they are considered the Black laws of the Constitution. You will hear a lot of our elders or olders state that those that are aware, right, that are aware of the history. They will say those are considered the Black laws of the Constitution. Now, we use Black, and I've talked about that. We know why we use Black, but we're gonna go through this history lesson on why we are using Black today, right? From even that time on your censuses, you're gonna have Negro, you'll have Black, you'll have colored, some mulatto, and now we're in the African American, but we still claim the Black. So anyway, it leads us to our history. So with that, I want to go over the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, and along with the Civil Rights Act of 1866. So let's go. I'm going to pull up 13th Amendment, which is really talks about the abolishing slavery, right? So I'm going to the Library of Congress. First of all, you know what? Before we actually go over the actual amendment, I'm going to give you a little history. So it says the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified in December 1865, formally abolished slavery and involuntary servitude throughout the United States, making it the first of three Reconstruction amendments after the Civil War. Okay. So we notice now when they talk about the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, they don't talk about the Civil War, which you have to take into consideration why we have these amendments to the Constitution and the time period. You just heard the president state, hey, there was something else happening in America at that time and why these constitutional amendments were added. So, and part of it was the Civil War and slavery. The ending of slavery. It states neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except, we got an exception, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Okay, y'all? Did y'all hear that? Okay, so the 13th Amendment, it formally was the abolition or abolishment of slavery, chattel slavery, officially ended chattel slavery in the United States. And now we have involuntary servitude that is still a part of the United States of America via prison, right? So involuntary servitude, it says prohibited forced labor with the exception for criminal punishment. So right now, we still have involuntary servitude in America, you all. So if you don't know, that's what prison is. Hence the reason why mass incarceration and certain ethnic group of Americans are targeted. I'm just saying, let's put it together. Let's make sure everybody understands what's really happening here, right? Okay, so we got that. 13th Amendment, we also want to say it came after the Emancipation Proclamation and was crucial in redefining freedom for millions. Who are the millions they're talking about? Our ancestors, right? Because I do believe the estimate was about 4 million. We're going to get to it. We're going to go to the government website and we're going to look at the numbers and talk about how many of our ancestors were emancipated throughout different periods of time throughout this nation in their states, right? So here we go. Here's one more, and it says Reconstruction era. part of a trio of amendments is a part of the Reconstruction era, which are the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments aimed at civil rights for African Americans. It's right there. It is right there. You can Google this. Just Google the 13th Amendment. That's all I did. I'm gonna show you. I'll show you for those that can see, because right now, I'm not able to share my screen on YouTube again, but I got issues over there. But here we go. We're gonna share the screen over here on the live so people can see. But I do want you all to know on YouTube, just go and look up 13th Amendment. You're going to get this information. You can just Google it. Has AI overview. Okay, so Reconstruction era amendments aimed at civil rights for African Americans, which also I want us to talk about the Civil Rights Act of 1866, because I think that is very important, right? So let's see if you're able to see my, okay, you all can see it on the live. You can see what it says. So we know that the 13th Amendment was created to abolish slavery, but also indentured servitude is still legal in America. If you commit a crime and you go to prison, okay? So it's still active. Now, I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute, because then what I'm gonna do is we're gonna bring up something else for you to see. Something else I want you to see. So hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing there. We now know about the 13th Amendment and why it was ratified. And it officially ended chattel slavery. And so coming out of the Civil War, right? This is what happens after the Civil War. Reconstruction is happening, and they need to include the formerly enslaved that are now emancipated. So with that, we're going to go to the freedmen at the Library of Congress. I'm going to share my screen for those that can see it on the live. And we're going to go to that particular cited government website. Okay. Let me see if I can get over here. I hate that I cannot share my screen. Allow over here on YouTube, because this is important and I want you all to see it. Let's see if it'll allow me to even have that as a part of. It's not even allowing me to share that screen. Let's see. It allows me to share my screen, but not this screen. But anyway, okay. So we're over here, the Library of Congress. You all see where it states freedmen, right? I went to the wrong one. Let's make sure you're still there. Okay. So now I'm going to scroll down. It says what? Emancipation Proclamation and 13th Amendment freed all slaves in the United States. And it says that hundreds of thousands of African Americans in the South face new difficulties in finding a way to forge an economically independent life in the face of hostile whites, little or no education, and few other resources such as money. So the situation was made all the more difficult because, right, we they let us have, we didn't have anything because of, it says it was made all the more difficult because of attitudes such as those of Freedman, Houston, Hartsfield, Holloway, who said, we colored people did not know how to be free, and the white people did not know how to have a free colored person about them. In fact, many African Americans were quite prepared for freedom as they demonstrated. It says, as they demonstrated in 1865 after demanding their civil rights to vote in the reunion of their families, education, and economic opportunities. So we're kind of, when I look at what we're doing right now, we're kind of repeating this pattern in a way, right? Because we know that a lot of our resources that is ours have been siphoned off and are going to immigrants and illegal aliens that are still a part of immigration. That's why I have the title for a freedman, 14th Amendment, birthright, citizenship, and immigration. Because this is an ongoing pattern with us here in our country, you all, of them removing us from our rightful position in this country as Americans, and everyone else coming in and taking over and taking what is ours. Right? They don't have the contributions, they don't have the equity in this country, but all of a sudden, everything here, they're entitled to everything here, and we're not entitled to anything which is ours. It's wild to me. I cannot continue to sit back and say that this is logical or right in any way, right? So for its part, the federal government established the Freedmen's Bureau. Oh, okay. And it goes on to say it's a temporary agency, right? They're saying it's a temporary agency. Well, guess what today? We don't want it as temporary. We want it as perpetual, forever, right? We no longer want have to be out here in boxed in with minorities. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. It said it was a temporary agency to provide food, clothing, and medical care for refugees in the South, especially the freed slaves. Okay, so here we are today. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And we're hearing supposedly people that are descendants say that we no longer can claim the freedman status. Now, mind you, there's recent cases of freedmen of the that are descendants of the native tribes that were enslaved by the natives, right? They're the descendants there. They're using the term freedman. They're still using the term freedman. They have literally gone to court, the Supreme Court of the tribes, and fought for their rights to be a part of the tribes, and they're acknowledged as freedmen. So I'm confused on how in this day and time in the Constitution is still the legal document of the land that we can't claim our status as freedmen. Y'all help me out. Somebody help me out in understanding that, because it's not registering with me right now. So with that, now we're going to get to the Civil Rights Act of 1866, because the Civil Rights Act of 1866 is what really helped create the 14th Amendment. So, and again, all of this happened via our Congress in the United States because of the ending of chattel slavery and the Civil War. This is what happened after. Okay, so we're going to go to another government website, and it's historyhouse.gov. It's from the House of Representatives, and we're going to look at what they state about the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Okay, so, and I'm going to read it off for you all here on the YouTube. You know what? I'm wondering if I should start the YouTube over, and maybe that'll make a difference. I hate to do that. Let's see if I wish I could troubleshoot and why we're not able to share the screen again, because it was working just fine before. Excuse me. It was just working just fine. And now all of a sudden I'm experiencing issues again. So, I'm going to do it one more time. Live streaming. All right. Okay. Over here at the StreamYard, we're going to go to the actual Civil Rights Bill of 1866. And this is, right? This is on our government website. All of these documents and what I'm bringing to you, besides of what I said was Google, it was just a general search. I'm giving you some government websites so that you know you can go back and look this up and read it for yourselves. We don't have to lie about this, but I want us to piece it all together so that we're understanding exactly how everything has been laid out right now. Okay, so we go to the Civil Rights Bill of 1866, right? And this is dated on the website April 9th, 1866. Okay, it says, on this date, the House overrode President Andrew Johnson's veto of the Civil Rights Bill of 1866 with near unanimous Republican support of 122 to 41, marking the first time Congress legislated upon civil rights. First introduced by Senate Judiciary Chairman Lemon Trumbull of Illinois. It says the bill mandated that all persons born in the United States, with the exception of the American Indians, hence that's what I was telling you about, they have their own treaties that align with the United States Constitution. Not separate. They had to align their treaties of 1866, 1868. They had to align them with the Constitution of the United States, you all. So when they say that freedmen over here with the civilized tribes is recognized, then your freedman has to be recognized over here with the Constitution. You can't do one without the other. I'm just saying. Okay, so and I'm gonna continue, excuse me. And it says, with the exception of American Indians, were hereby declared to be citizens of the United States. It says this legislation granted all citizens the full and equal benefit of all laws proceeding for the security of person and property. Persons and property, y'all. Our land. We are the persons. We're the freedmen. Okay. Anyway, y'all help me out if I'm wrong. Please, please, please let me know why I'm going wrong. All right. So back to it. It says, to radical Republicans who believe the federal government had a role in shaping a multiracial society in the post-war South, the measure seemed the next logical step after the ratification of the 13th Amendment on December the 18th, 1865, which abolished slavery. Okay. Now, two things in this. Y'all know I'm a harp on being a radical Republican. I'm going to put it out there. Yeah, you know I'm a radical Republican because at least the radical Republicans know how to do right. But anyway, and a lot of our ancestors were also radical Republicans. But anyway, the other thing is, it says the measure seemed the next logical step after the ratification of the 13th Amendment on December the 18th, 1865. So what does that tell you? That tells me that is a part of being a freedman. That's a part of freedman history. Hence the reason why you have the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, right? Excuse me, phone ringing. So it says full and equal benefit of all laws, proceedings for the security of person and property. You all know the 14th Amendment was drafted off the Civil Rights Act of 1866. I'll repeat that. The 14th Amendment, the whole creation of the 14th Amendment was drafted off the Civil Rights Bill of 1866. So therefore, it cannot apply to recent arrivals that just come here on a visa and sit here and have a baby on the soil, and then all of a sudden their children are citizens. Doesn't make any sense, doesn't add up. Especially with this time period, right? In history in America and what is happening. Because it's the emancipation. Has nothing to do with immigrants and immigration. Nothing to do with immigrants and immigration, right? Now, with that, they go on to say Representative Henry Raymond of New York noted that the legislation was one of the most important bills ever presented to this House for its action. I want to go back because they did state something in here, another thing they stated in here about America being a multiracial society. So even then, we have to look at that race was playing a part in the Constitution. And now they're saying race the Constitution is race neutral. We're going to get to that. We're definitely going to get to that, but I had to point that out so as we continue to move forward. So it goes on to say President Johnson disagreed with the level of federal intervention implied by the legislation, calling it another step, or rather a stride towards centralization and concentration of all legislative power in the national government. And of course, he vetoed it. But he's also the same president that decided that, you know what, after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, that we was not going to implement the 40 acres and a mule. Right? He ordered all of that to be taken back. And that is by Sherman. Oh my gosh, what's the term we use? The official term. Excuse me, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because we're gonna get to something else. So we're seeing where we have been included. We're supposed to have our persons and property in America. Everybody else should not be having our property. Right? Order 15, right? General Sherman Special Order 15. That's what I'm speaking of. Special Field Order number 15. We know that Johnson went back and reneged on everything that initially Abraham Lincoln had was doing for the freedmen, as far as making sure we retrieve land. Take my time and walk it out. I hear you, girlfriend. I'm going to do that, okay? Thank you, Miss QT on duty. I want us to understand that you can come back to this, and this way you can go and make sure that you walk it out with your family and your friends so that they understand what is happening right now in our country regarding the 14th Amendment. It's not for anybody else but us. Right. And even when we look at the Civil War, and I think a major reason why a lot of them don't want to talk about how emancipation happened in the Civil War is because Abraham Lincoln gave us credit for saving the Union. Therefore, we saved America. We're always here to save America. What is America going to do for us? And I'm all about making sure we hold this current administration accountable to us, Americans first. And the fact that he's utilizing making sure the Supreme Court clarifies the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, it's a slam dunk for us to go about and making sure we have a freedmen agenda of Reconstruction for ourselves, finishing Reconstruction, right? All right. So okay. So the next thing on the list that I want us to talk about is, oh, wait a minute. What are the immigration laws in America during this time? What's going on with America with immigration at this time? Hold on, let's find out. What are some of the immigration laws? And we're going to talk about that because they are not under the 13th, 14th Amendment, right? Okay. First, we have the Immigration Law of 1790. And I'm going to just give an overview of what they say about the immigration. It's the Naturalization Act of 1790. And it says it is the first U.S. law setting rules for citizenship, opening it to free white persons with 2 years of residency and good moral character. I'm just saying. That's all that immigration law was for them in 1790. And it says that allowing them to swear allegiance to the Constitution, while also granting citizenship to children born abroad to citizens. Whoa. Okay. Let's walk that down. Let's walk through that. So you mean to tell me, and this is probably why we're having the issue we're having right now. In 1790, the Naturalization Act of 1790, a free white person, right, meaning they were not in indentured servitude or slavery. We know they wasn't a part of chattel slavery. A free white persons with 2 years residency. They still had to be here for 2 years of good moral character, and then they allowed them to grant citizenship to their children that was born abroad. That's 1790. Okay, let's make sure we understand. Now, we're going to move forward with the next immigration law, because they've just been able to walk up in here and say, I'm here for a couple years, and now I'm able to claim that I'm a U.S. citizen. Whereas we, right, the descendants of the formerly emancipated had to make sure that we were written into the Constitution. There's some differences there. I'm just saying there's some differences. So, okay. So now when we go and look at all of these immigration laws, oh, wait a minute, laws and policies. Let's see. Okay. We have the one of 1790. There was another one with quota. And I want to go over that. Okay, Immigration Act of 1920. So we have the Immigration Act of 1790. Now we have the Immigration Act of 1921. So it says this wasn't a single 1920 Immigration Act, but rather a series of restrictive laws in the 1920s, starting with the Emergency Quota Act of 1921 and culminating with a much stricter Immigration Act of 1924. And it's called the Johnson-Reed Act. So they established a national quota origin system. So it says these acts severely limited overall immigration, favoring Northern and Western Europeans by using older census data from 1910 for 1921, 1890 for 1924 as a base of quotas, while virtually banning Asian immigration and excluding immigrants from the Western Hemisphere. So, that right there covers a lot. That covers a lot in that we know they started implementing a quota system, right? So even the Europeans were not coming here in droves, even in 1920 and 1924, because they were implementing a quota system. And it says the first U.S. law to set numerical limits on immigration was the Emergency Quota Act of 1921. Okay. So we got both of these, or we got two acts, right, via our United States government that says, no, we're going to start limiting the amount of immigrants coming into this country. And they put in a quota system after the 1790 Immigration Naturalization Naturalization Act, right? Or the Naturalization Act of 1790, excuse me. So they decided to put in a quota system. So now you move forward. It said in the Emergency Quota Act of 1921, it says limited annual immigration to 3% of a nationality's foreign-born population in the 1910 U.S. Census, capping total arrivals to around 350,000. Woo! And what we got right now? What we got right now in America? We got millions coming in just like every year, on top of the illegals that are coming in here every year. And they got what they talk about gotaways. Y'all heard about them, right? And we don't even know who they are. So, we're going to go to one thing. I want to go over here and I want to play Stephen Miller. Y'all know, I'm going to tell y'all something. I used to not like Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller on point. And y'all, he said something the other day. I'm like, are you listening to me, Stephen? Because he sure enough said there should be a moratorium on immigration. Y'all already know I've been advocating for immigration moratorium all of this year. I've been saying immigration moratorium, and he literally said it or typed it out and said it on screen. But let me show you all. I'm gonna go here with Stephen Miller. We're gonna play Stephen Miller today. And I hope you all on YouTube can hear what he has to say. Let's see. I want you all to hear him on how immigrants and immigration should be making sure that we have a moratorium. Let's see. He's been making his rounds. And especially talking about the Somalians. But there's this particular, hold on, let's see. I'm going to go to my page because I did retweet it, where he speaks about a moratorium. And I think that's very important. The word is getting out, and we may, in fact, get a real immigration moratorium here in America. And I am all for it. And we know right now there's a pause, but there's no legislation to say that this is actually going to this is what we're doing, right? They're just saying right now we're putting a pause on some things, but we want an actual immigration moratorium. That's what I want. And I want it for more than 10 years. I want it for like 20, to be honest with you, so we can get back to who we are and what we're doing here in America, because we're spending too much on time on immigrants, right, at this point. And a lot of our monies is going towards immigrants when it should be going towards us, the freedmen, right? Should be all about us in our country. So where is, just when I have all of this laid out, I can't find it. I found it. Okay, here we go. And I'm gonna share my screen for those of you on X and StreamYard, and then we're gonna play it for you all that are over here on YouTube so you can hear it. I just hate that I cannot share this on the screen on YouTube, because this is something that we need to make sure our people understand what is ongoing and why we need an immigration moratorium. So hold on, I'm gonna get it going for you all so we can hear what he has to say. Okay.
Clearly, we need to have in this country exactly what President Trump called for, which is that we need a moratorium on immigration from third world countries until we can heal ourselves as a nation, solve our education issues, solve our healthcare issues, our public safety issues, our assimilation issues, our cultural issues. So the 1924 Act is such a good example because we had large-scale immigration from Europe from 1880 to 1920. So in other words, we went from a country that had immigration from part of Europe to immigration from many other parts of Europe. But even other European countries pose enormous stresses on the U.S. system, both economically and in terms of security. There's a lot of crime, a lot of threats to public safety and order, and those were addressed with very strict immigration quotas. What they don't teach you in school is that from 1920 to 1970, there was negative migration. There was a half century of negative migration. The foreign-born population declined by 40% for half a century. During that same time period, Will, the U.S. population doubled from natural childbirth. That was the cauldron in which a unified shared national identity was formed. They went through a depression together. They went through world wars together. They landed on the moon together. This great period in American history happened at a time when there was negative migration. They don't teach that to our kids in school, and frankly, I would submit very few politicians serving in Congress probably know that.
All right. Okay. Now I'm gonna give Stephen some high fives, because he covered the Europeans too. Did he not? Did he not? He covered the Europeans too. He didn't just say these other black countries. He covered the Europeans too. So hey, I ain't got no qualms with him for that. because he even said immigration, it's time to have a moratorium on immigration. And then went and clarified how even the Europeans was being limited, and how we were able to, as a country, allow some of them to assimilate and acculturate to America. Right? Okay, he didn't leave them out. He included them. So it's not just, you can't say it's about race. They're just doing it to the third world humiliated countries. We cannot say that. Nope, nope, nope. So like I said, you all, these days I'm agreeing with Stephen Miller. I'm in shock myself. But anyway, okay. So he talked about, you heard him speak about the Immigration Act of 1924, and it's considered the Johnson-Reed Act. It said it further tightened restrictions, lowering the quota to 2% of the 1890 foreign-born population. It goes on to say it deliberately favored older immigrant groups from Northern Western Europe. Now, I know we heard President Trump say something about, oh, we need them people from Sweden or Norway or whatever, Switzerland or whatever. No, we don't need them either, President Trump. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. We don't need them either. We just need to focus on us that are here, and then making sure the freedmen go through their reconstruction, complete their reconstruction, and get into their rightful positions as Americans. Now, I'm with you on that. Okay, so I just want to say that, we at this point in time, the freedmen, we need to focus on us. We have so many resources. We have equity in this country. None other immigrants have in this country. I don't even care about them South Africans. Okay, anyway. We're on his app right now, so I'm gonna just be cool, because I really don't care for him either. Okay, just so you all know, it is what it is. He said some things that are just, and his father, and what his father has said. Whoo, okay, I'm gonna take a breather. Okay, so the Immigration Act of 1924, Johnson-Reed Act, also completely excluded immigrants from Asia. You don't hear no Asians, from Chinese upset, do you? Shout out to Stephen Miller. You're right. You don't hear them complaining or saying anything. So why are we fighting? Why would we fight for immigrants that don't even fight for themselves? Anyway, so it set no limits for Western Hemisphere countries. But right now, you know what? They also say they created U.S. Border Patrol in the Immigration Act of 1924. That's when they created the U.S. Border Patrol. Now, immigration moratorium, nobody's coming in. No H-1B1s, F-1 visas, none of that. That's where I'm at. Right? None of that. Immigration moratorium, that means everything is on hold. Nobody gets to come in the country, and the ones in the country that are not supposed to be here, we're clearing them out. We're getting them out because they're not supposed to be here. So, okay. So the next thing I want to go to, y'all, I have a little agenda. I always create an agenda to go through some things so that we can make sure that everything that we're speaking about, one, you can go and look up, and I'm just bringing my little twist to it, but you can always put your twist on it when you're educating the people out here on the ground, and letting them know what's really going on. And you have the cited sources and documents as well to back up whatever you're saying to them, okay? And they don't think, because we got a lot of people that like parrot talking, right? And spreading propaganda. This is not the time, you all. This is not the time for us to be spreading propaganda, parrot talking. This is first of all, we're freedmen. Y'all see my shirt? I'm representing today. Okay. So we have to stand in our being a freedman and our Americanness, and being a founding population of this country that have been here from the very beginning and have done so much for this country. We have all kinds of contributions and equity in our country, and we need to stand on it because it's ours, and we need to make sure we retrieve it for ourselves and our lineage and our legacy ongoing. That's where I'm at. Okay, so now we know how the Civil Rights Act came about and how it reinforces the 14th Amendment, which is for the freedmen and the formerly emancipated, or the formerly enslaved and emancipated, and their descendants. So now, when we look at, and I'm gonna have to highlight this, when we look at race in America, right? So one of the things I've been expressing is that race in America was created specifically to harm and injure the freedmen, right? Who else has had the experience than us? So race is not something that once others come over here that they get to identify under Black. Not to me, right? And so, and that's a way they have been harming us in this country, because you have many white, fake white, I say, pseudo white, coming from European nations. As you know, we just went over it. They were immigrants, and they were able to bring their families and their children over here under white, right? No contributions. They've done nothing, worked and helped this country in any way, advance it. They didn't fight in the Civil War. We know a lot of them would not fight in the Civil War. And hence the reason they had to emancipate our ancestors and have the free colored troops, right, to come and fight on the Union side. And then some of our enslaved ancestors in the South were on the Confederate side, said, "See ya, I'm gonna get out of here, and I'm going right up there to the Union, and I'm gonna join them, and I'm gonna fight you." That's what they did. That's what a lot of them did. And I have to admit, also, this is fact. You had the native tribes that were a part or aligned with the Confederacy. Okay? The native tribes aligned with the Confederates. You know what? I'm gonna have to share one more clip right now before we go back into where I was going with the Supreme Court and their clarifying the interpretation. We're going to listen to the Cherokee chief speak about how they participated in slavery. So no one can say that we did not understand that the 5 civilized tribes aligned with the Confederates to keep slavery going. Okay, hold on. Let me go find that. I'm gonna share my screen so we all understand that the Cherokee, which is a part of the 5 civilized tribes, supported slavery. And he admits that it was the slaves of the tribe that really built their reservations or helped them to build while they were enslaved. He admits it. Oh, here we go. Okay, and I really appreciate Devon Osborne for putting this out here on the internet and getting that interview so that we could have this actual information, right? It's there. There's no denying it. And again, the treaties aligned with the Constitution. And they can use freedmen right now today when you have the Creek freedmen fighting and have restored their rights to the Creek Muskegon Creek tribe. Hey, they use freedmen. So I don't understand why someone is going around talking about we can't utilize the term freedmen, and that's not our status. It has been omitted for a while, but we can definitely make sure it is back into law with no problems. Especially, you all know how I'm thinking right now, especially with this current administration. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen on StreamYard. And again, you all, I apologize out here on YouTube. I wish, and I didn't even record it thinking I could have this, well, maybe I can transfer it over. But let's see what I can do to make sure that this video has all the documents so that you all can actually go back to this information and share, because this is going to go out on the Freedman channel. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen again here on X, and we're going to hear the Cherokee chief. I'll get his name. I forgot his name, you all. Hoskin Jr. Cherokee Chief Hoskin Jr. is going to speak on how they did enslave some of our ancestors, and how they also built their reservations and their society as well. Look at God. Okay, let's see. Let me make sure it's playing. Oh, here we go. I'm going to rewind, and here we go.
And what we did, for those who may be unfamiliar, is we enslaved black people in the 19th century. And we started doing it in the early part of the 19th century. We were situated geographically in the southern part of the United States. That's not an excuse, but it gives people geographic context and also historic context. We helped build our economy at that time, pre-removal, on the backs of slave labor. Slaves went on the Trail of Tears as slaves, as property. You can look at records, and there's the records of people, and then there's the records of property. And slaves, as people know about slavery in this country and around the world, were considered property. After removal, we continued to rebuild, or we started to rebuild, and we rebuilt in part on the backs of slave labor. And what we did, for those who may be unfamiliar, is we enslaved black people in the 19th century. And we started doing it in the early part of the 19th century. We were situated geographically in the southern part of the United States. That's not an excuse, but it gives people geographic context and also historic context. We helped build our economy at that time, pre-removal, on the backs of slave labor. Slaves went on the Trail of Tears as slaves, as property. You can look at records, and there's the records of people, and then there's the records of property. And slaves, as people know about slavery in this country and around the world, were considered property. After removal, we continued to rebuild, or we started to rebuild, and we rebuilt in part on the backs of slave labor.
Okay. Now, I hope you all could hear that on the YouTube. It was kind of low, but you heard him. I will do that. Thank you, QT, on duty for that. So you heard him state that they did enslave, and in the 19th century, and they used slaves, and they went on the Trail of Tears with them as property. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to make sure we had that omission as a part of this. So when people are talking about, oh no, they did not, and we're just Indian, we're not just Indian. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. We're going to keep it moving, where I do want to play another submission by the president, right? And what he states, I'm going to find it. So people are not confused about some things that are ongoing and where we're going forward as our agenda, as our Freedman agenda moving forward, right? There should be we want to remove any of the conflation, any of the confusion. We want people to have understanding. We want the messaging to be the same from all of us that are out here in the grassroots when we are going out here to communicate and express and explain to our educate, right? Educate our masses. This is how we're moving. This is how we're moving as a unit, right? Because at this point in time, we must move as a unit and as this collective of Americans that have had this specific harms and injuries and these experiences on this soil that is our soil, our country. So we have to start moving in a certain way. And anybody that wants to deny what we're doing and bring about distraction and destruction, we need to remove them from amongst us at this point in time. They're not going to serve us. They're not going to help us. It is just lost cause, right? We got to remain focused. Our eyes are on the prize. That's what I say. we're going to listen to the president also say what we already know and what we say quite often. At least I do anyway. We're going to listen to him state how Black Americans built this country. Now, why am I playing this again? Because it goes along with the 13th, 14th, 15th amendments. Okay? This reinforces. He knows what's up. He knows what is meant. What we, when we come to the table and when we sit down, what we're coming for. We're freedmen. We want to make sure that whatever happens here, right, and moving forward, it's about the freedmen, our freedmen agenda. So hold on, we're going to find the clip. There's a real nice clip. I played it before, and I really like it in that he's talking also to our people about our citizenship and how our government should be working for us. And it's very important. Okay, let's see. Every time I go to look for what is usually really easy when I look for it any other time. But now all of a sudden it's an issue. But anyway, we're going to find that clip. I found one, but I don't like that one. I want the one that he's actually at the HBCUs and he's letting even our youth know that, you know what, your government should be working for you. This is your government. And we're acknowledging you as a part of this government. And we want you to be able to get what is yours as Americans first. So, let's see. Maybe I should just do, we're going to get there. And I'm pretty sure I've retweeted it numerous of times, but of course, the algorithm now, when I want to bring it up, it's not bringing up that particular video. So with that, we're going to go also into some of these cases about using race. Now, the Supreme Court, we know that they've stated that the Constitution is race neutral, right? So we also know that the Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment was created to provide protections, right, for our people. However, also on the Senate website, it states that they were attempting to make this society to alleviate some of the things that are happening in this multiracial society. So we definitely have to look at that, because at the end of the day, when we look at freedman status and utilizing our freedman term, that separates us from the rest of those that are now coming to America that want to operate in our identity of Black, right? So this is a way that we can set ourselves apart from the rest that are in this nation that are not necessarily of our collective and have not been in America to even deserve the accolades, the accomplishments, or anything that we've done here of our history that it should be, they get to tag along with us and say they're Black too, and they have done these things in this country. We're not going to do that. Okay, so we're going to use Angela Stanton King. I'll use her, and she did clip it, and it's on her page, but I'm also going to look for the other one. But we're going to listen to this. I hope you all can hear. Okay, here we go.
African Americans built this nation. African Americans built this nation. We built this thing. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense? African Americans built this nation. We built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. We all built it, but you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense? African Americans
All
built
right.
this nation. We built this nation.
All right. So I let it play a couple of
You're just
times.
starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that.
Okay.
Just
So I let it play a couple of times so we can make sure we heard it right? So you all heard it with the president. Now, this isn't his first time in admitting this. He keeps reiterating this in various ways and over time. And so now, you know, when we look at our freedmen term and you see how he is at this present point in time working to make sure there is a clarification on the interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Y'all see where I'm going? Two very important parts here. 14th Amendment, clarifying the interpretation via the Supreme Court. He's the executive power. He knew it was going to trigger many of these other entities and organizations and states to challenge him. He knew it would go to the Supreme Court. It's a slam dunk for me. I appreciate that, right? As we know right now, we don't have any representation. Where are your politicians that you voted for in office speaking for you? They're nowhere to be found. We don't hear anything from them, right? Nothing. But they got your vote. But they're working for others that never ever voted for them or should not have been voting for them in these elections, because we're finding out a great deal of these states that allowed illegal aliens to vote and they still didn't win. Anyway, look at God. So there was the one other video, if I can find it, and then we're going to look at what Clarence Thomas said. These two other cases that talk about Black, right? We want to look at race and how DEI, all of that is coming under fire under this administration because race has been used to harm and injure the freedmen. Because everybody that was coming in using DEI, it wasn't for us. People coming in and using affirmative action is not the Black Americans, right? White women are the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. And then you got gay white men now benefiting from affirmative action. You got Asians that was benefiting from affirmative actions. And you definitely have the new melanated on the soil that have been benefiting from affirmative action. And we know, right, after slavery, we went into what we call Jim Crow. And what was Jim Crow about? Jim Crow was about race. Laws that were created under Black codes, right, to harm and injure the freedmen. So we're going to go to how the 1877 compromise, right? We got to talk about it. How did we get from freedmen to operating in race of Black or Negro, right? We know Negro was out there as well. And when I've said this before, and when I talk to my mother about, Negro, is there a difference between Negro and Black? And she's like, it's the same. And I agree with her. Negro does mean Black, right? So they just got another term or just anything to keep us in a fix without actually utilizing freedmen. Because once you utilize freedmen, You have all the rights, right? You're supposed to be a whole American as a freedman. You're supposed to have property, unalienable rights, your right to pursue happiness and identify in the way that you so choose. All of that comes under freedmen. It's part of the Constitution. And it's race neutral. Has nothing to do with race, right? So let me see if I can find this other video. And then if we can't find that other video, we're going to go to the Compromise of 1877 because we see how the immigration laws have come into play over the years. And we got one more immigration law that comes under the Civil Rights Act of 1964 or 1968, right? We know that's when they had the Immigration Naturalization Act that is now supposedly we're supposed to be operating under it, and they're just letting everybody in and flood the country. So we're going to get to how we want to keep it going, how we are now utilizing race instead of freedmen. Give me a moment, and we're going to see if I can find this other video. If I can't find this other video, we'll just continue on with the yeah, okay. Interesting. All right. So I'm not able to pull up that other video. I wonder what I used before. But we're going to go to the 1877. So let's look at as we're continuing with our history, right? So we know that they implementing all of these immigration acts. Two of them were very restrictive that they implemented between 1921 and 1924. And so with that, they talk about the Immigration Act, the Johnson-Reed Act of 1924. And in that Johnson-Reed Act of 1924, again, they began to numerically limit the number of immigrants that were coming into the country. So when we now come into emancipation, right, for us, our ancestors, we are now not given, we had the Freedmen's Bureau, right? We know about the Freedmen's Bureau. You all don't know about the Freedmen's Bureau. Let's check it out. We had the Freedmen's Bureau for about 5 or 6 years, right? And then even with that, that was to help us to get established. And from the Freedmen's Bureau, we established the Freedmen's Bank. And even then, the monies that our ancestors put into the Freedmen's Bank and the Freedmen's, after setting up the Freedmen's Bureau, we lost that. We lost those monies. But that was set up, right? Freedmen's Bureau, Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. So when we talk about the Freedmen's Bureau, it says freedmen. Okay? It's Freedmen's Bureau. We have a Freedmen's Building in the Capitol right now. They named a Treasury Annex the Freedmen's Building, Bank Building, right? Treasury. So we have that right here today. So again, when people are talking about you can't use freedmen, you can't use freedmen. Yeah, anyway, okay. So it says the Freedmen's Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands was a government agency established in 1865 to aid formerly enslaved people and poor whites of the post-Civil War South. Poor whites of the post-Civil War South. Reenacting a Freedmen's Bureau today for us has nothing to do with the poor whites and the refugees. Because the poor whites were not freedmen. They were not given the status of freedmen. They were never enslaved. So poor whites are not freedmen. So when you hear that, please dispel that. They were refugees. And so they included them into our Freedmen's Bureau, but it's Freedmen's Bureau, right? So it's really named for us and our emancipation, our ancestors' emancipation. Has nothing to do that these are for white people. We can reconstruct this in any way that we so choose, because poor whites were not freedmen. They were never enslaved, right? So then it says it gave distributed food, clothing, fuel, medical care, education, labor, family reunification, legal aid. All of that was a part of which we reconstructing our Freedmen's Bureau today. What will we have there, right? I tweeted out to the president and some others. Yeah, we want our own divisions set up within our Freedmen's Bureau. We want our own health and human services. We want our own civil rights division. We want our own genealogy. We want our own whatever we so choose and we need for our education, our own department of education, right? So that we are doing certain things for our people. It will be like our mini government. It'll be set up similar to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Very simple, right? Except we get to decide how we want to run this bureau, this agency. It will be all us vetted, right? And that's jobs. That's freedmen jobs. So, okay. So with that then, we know that the Freedmen's Bureau was ended in 1872. Okay. So that's going to bring us forward. It's going to bring us forward to the Compromise of 1877. Right. And again, I'm utilizing government websites. You can go out and look at this up. It'll be right there for you. And I will put links online here or on the YouTube channel, on the Freedmen channel, so that you can go back to these links and add these links and have them as cited sources, right? So now let's get to the Compromise of 1877 and why we ended up going back into utilizing race instead of utilizing our freedmen status, okay? If you all don't know what the Compromise of 1877 was, I'm about to give it to you right now. So I want to go to a specific website because I like their website and how they expressed it. And it was, I think it was the senator's website. So give me a moment because I do want to read from their actual website and how they have documented it. Let's see. And it was the Senate. I don't want to, let's see. Okay, here we go. U.S. government compromise. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to read from the United States Senate. Okay. I will share this on the screen on the live so you all can see it, because this is from the United States Senate on the Compromise of 1877 and how they pulled out from the South and then left us, the Republicans. They abandoned, right? They abandoned us, the freedmen, and gave certain powers back to the Confederates, and hence started Jim Crow. Okay, so here on the website it states, on January the 29th, 1850, Henry Clay rose in the old Senate chamber to begin most important debate of his career to forge one last compromise. A Whig from Kentucky, the great compromiser, entered the Senate in 1806 and served intermittently over 4 decades and became a leading voice in the Senate. He resigned in 1842 to run for president, but returned in 1849 to seek a compromise solution to the nation's growing sectional strife to avoid civil war. Okay, so in that, it talks about how he suggested combining some resolutions into a single bill, which Clay referred to as the sort of omnibus, into which Foote introduced all sorts of things. So the ideal took hold and Clay endorsed the Senate's first omnibus bill. So as we go forward, I'm going to stop sharing this because this is the wrong one, you all. I want to go forward with the actual Here we go. That wasn't the one I wanted. Hold on. That does set it all up. The Compromise of 1877. U.S. Senate. Okay, let's see. That was specifically on Clay. That's not the one that I wanted, although that was the setup. I wanted to go to this. Okay. So here it states a compromise of 1877 was the informal deal of the United States Senate and House resolving the disputed 1876 election, where Democrats accepted Republican Rutherford B. Hayes as president in exchange for Republicans removing federal troops from the South, ending Reconstruction and appointing Southern Democrats to Hayes' cabinet and supporting Southern infrastructure, ultimately allowing white Democrats to begin control and ushering in Jim Crow. Okay, so that's where it all began. They began ushering in Jim Crow, which then goes into our Black laws. That's what Jim Crow was. Black codes, Black laws, and that's where the race social construct really took a hold again, right? We already had it in slavery, which they said, oh, now we're emancipating these individuals, these beings, and they're going to have a status as citizens of America. So then they make this compromise, and then all of a sudden we're back at square one with race. And which is where we've kind of been, right? And then as we continue to move forward, we've had the civil rights movement. And when we had the civil rights movement was to rectify the harms and injuries of Jim Crow. Has nothing to do with others that are here now claiming under affirmative action that they are, minorities, disadvantaged, they have underserved, all of these different terms, right now that are coming under their civil rights, under affirmative action. So that's going to take us to, I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going to go to what Clarence Thomas said in this fair admissions case, students for fair admissions versus Harvard. That was the case that recently came up with the Supreme Court, and in which they stated, right, you can't operate in race. That's one of the cases. Can't operate in race. I just want to ask everyone, if we're not freedmen and we can't operate in Black or Negro, what is our status? What would be our status? Who are we? Someone says, oh, you're just Americans. But you have a sitting president right now that is challenging the interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Y'all help me out. There's something missing here. How can you at this point in time tell me, yes, I know I'm American, but also the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments were created to rectify some things or to make sure my ancestors were made full, whole citizens of the United States. And now you're telling me that everyone else can come here and operate under Black, but the Supreme Court says, no, Black is a racial term. You can't operate under Black with the Supreme Court or with the Constitution. So which one is it? What are we? If we're just Americans, then how is it that as Americans, we don't have our unalienable rights. We don't have our property, right? Where are all the things that we're supposed to have as Americans? Where's our wealth? Right? Everybody else can come here and have their enclaves. Little Haiti, Chinatown, little Italy. So where's Black America? Where are we at? Oh, we just a street. We're just Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, right? Now, we've had our communities, our cities, and things of that nature, but we also know that they've been destroyed. Every time we build family, build businesses, Black Wall Street, I'm using that, but there were many of them. There were thousands of towns and cities that were ours. And look what we have now. Oh, what just came up to me is just I read the story about Allensworth, colonel. I think it was a colonel in the Union Army, and how he served during the Union and helped fight and make sure they were able to overcome the Confederates. And he built a Black town in California, and it was destroyed because they made sure that the water supply was rerouted and they couldn't get water in the town. And he was a decorated Union service member. So y'all help me with this. I'm still not understanding how people can come here today and tell us, "Oh no, you're just American." No. We are a specific ethnic group of Americans that are a founding population of this country. And we have so much equity and contributions to this country that none of Americans have. And we're not going to overlook that to make others feel so good about themselves. We're not doing that. We're going to feel good about ourselves, right? So I just want to get to, let's see, something that Clarence Thomas stated that I think is very important for us to acknowledge, and how others want to ignore it and not address it, because it's very important that we understand how the 14th Amendment is specific to the descendants of slaves, just like the president said, and how we in this moment must take action to make sure that we are utilizing our freedmen term. Right? Why would we not? Why would we not in this moment utilize our status as freedmen? And I'm having a real hard time with individuals now that we are educating, we're understanding the power of this status and this term, how now they're attempting to say, "Oh no, you can't utilize that." What do you mean? If the descendants of the native tribes are freedmen and they're utilizing freedmen, how in the world are we not supposed to use freedmen? That's where I'm at. And they just had recent legislation, right? They had recent legislation where they're utilizing the term freedmen. So I'm going to find, let's see, what I want to read that Clarence Thomas said that I think is very important for us to acknowledge and for us to make sure that everyone else understands what this says. And I'm going to find it. Oh, here we go. And I'm going to put it up on the screen. I'm going to read it, and I'll let you all know where I received the link. Again, I'll put it in. Give me a moment. I'm searching for it here because I want to read it. It's pretty lengthy. And okay, all right. So it's kind of lengthy, but I want us to break it down so that everyone understands what it is saying and what he's saying in this, and how we can make sure that when we talk about our life, liberty, our happiness, our pursuit of happiness, our equality, our equity, that it is understood, right? Okay. So I'm going to read off what this is an excerpt. Excuse me. This is an excerpt of what Clarence Thomas wrote in his opinion. Okay, opinion. After the students' fair admissions versus Harvard, right, case that went to the Supreme Court. And this was back in 2023. Okay, here's an excerpt. He says it's Clarence Thomas, section E, paragraph 2. And I'll put the links for the YouTube or for the Friedman channel YouTube in this right at the bottom when I upload it. Make sure it's uploaded with. But it says the 1866 Freedmen's Bureau Act then expanded on the prior year's law, authorizing the Bureau to care for all loyal refugees and freedmen. And then he cites a source. Importantly, however, the acts applied to freedmen, a formerly race-neutral category, not blacks writ large. And because not all blacks in the United States were former slaves, freedmen was a decidedly under-inclusive proxy for race. Okay. What do you all, if you all don't know what under-inclusive is, let's see what under-inclusive is. Okay, under-inclusive describes a rule, law, or classification that does not include everything or everyone, excluding people or things that are similar to those included. Okay, let me reread. I want to break this down for us so we understand what we mean by under-inclusive proxy for race. He said, and because not all blacks in the United States were former slaves, freedmen was a decidedly under-inclusive proxy for race. Okay. And I said, okay, if you don't know what under-inclusive means, it says it describes a rule, law, or classification that doesn't include everything or everyone it should, excluding people or things that are similar to those included. Okay. That's under-inclusive, right? So, in this under-inclusive, it says First Amendment concerns in law, whereas a statute fails to address an entire harm, essentially doing too little to achieve its goal. Okay, so we already know when we talk about reparations, they already said race. Can't go by race. But we got freedmen here. And it's a proxy, under-inclusive proxy for race. That's what he says. Okay, as we move on, he cites another source. He goes on to say, moreover, the Freedmen's Bureau served newly freed slaves, right? Alongside white refugees. Another cited source. And it goes on with the original meaning of the 14th Amendment. And it states, and advocates of the law explicitly disclaimed any view rooted in modern conception of ant subordination. Okay, what does ant subordination mean? Okay. And it says it really describes a ranking. Okay. So, and subordination, that's a ranking. He goes on to say that, to the contrary, they explicitly clarified that the equality sought by the law was not one in which all men shall be 6 feet high. It strove to ensure that the freedmen enjoy equal rights before the law, such that each man shall have the right to pursue in his own way life, liberty, and happiness. Okay, I'm gonna read the last 2 sentences again. Okay, because the more and more I read it and it goes and I go over it, it's blatant in what he's saying. There's no conflation in this opinion. Okay, so again, the last 2 sentences. To the contrary, they explicitly clarified that the equality sought by the law was not one in which all men shall be 6 feet high. It strove to ensure that the freedmen enjoy equal rights before the law, such that each man shall have the right to pursue in his own way life, liberty, and happiness. You all, okay, that's straight, that's blatant. I don't know how anyone can confuse what Clarence Thomas wrote in that opinion. He specifically reiterates freedmen. The 14th Amendment was for freedmen. The 14th Amendment was so that the freedmen, the formerly emancipated, will have equality to rights, liberty, life, happiness. And that includes property. We can't forget the property, right? Can't forget the property. So I just wanted to make sure we're understanding, right? That what is happening right now is that we have an opportunity to reconstruct, reestablish the Borough of Freedmen Affairs specifically for the freedmen. We don't have to have any white refugees because there's no war. We don't have to have anybody else included with freedmen because we are the descendants of the formerly enslaved and emancipated in America. And he reiterates it was law. This is what the Congress and the congressional record and all of these civil rights bills or Civil Rights Bill of 1866 was talking about. It's all about freedmen. Nothing to do with anybody else. Nothing to do with Von King Ark. Right? So I just wanted to put that out there. I had to include that in this podcast because I know many of people now are going around and saying, "Oh, you can't use freedmen," or you know what, you got to include white refugees with freedmen. Okay, I don't know where they're getting that information from, but this is why I decided to make sure that we're understanding that our freedman status and utilizing our freedman status is the way to go. Oh, hold on. Let me reiterate one more time. Let me reiterate. And because not all blacks in the United States were former slaves, freedmen was a decidedly under-inclusive proxy for race. So when people tell you, "Oh, well, you wasn't enslaved," wait a minute, but I'm a descendant of the formerly enslaved. And the Constitution, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments are still applicable to the Constitution. Voting rights, we got to do one on voting rights. Lord have mercy. Ooh, breaking that down with the 15th Amendment. That's the next one. Let me put that on my list. We got to break that down because they're using your voting rights too and trying to make it seem like illegal aliens can come over here and vote. So it's everything of ours, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, are being utilized and weaponized against us, the freedmen, that are specifically written for our people, the Americans, the patriots of America. All of that's ours, right? in the Constitution. They're now trying to say it can be utilized for others that just came to this country, just stepped foot on the soil. Do y'all see? This is crazy. This is wild. So, and then I have people repeating that because you're not, you was never enslaved, that freeman, you cannot utilize the freeman term or the status. Wait a minute. Don't I have a freedman bloodline. I have freedman ancestors that went from being sharecroppers, right? They ancestors came out of slavery, then their descendants were out of slavery, but then they were sharecroppers that experienced Jim Crow. So, and then also fought for affirmative action, right? Civil rights movement. Y'all help me out with some of this of what people are saying and finding all kinds of ways to keep us from getting into our rightful position and doing or taking what is ours. Like, we got those amongst us that are trying to keep us from getting into our rightful position and getting what is ours as Americans in this country with so much equity and all kinds of accomplishments and accolades. And we cannot continue to allow those beings to speak in spaces and continue to miseducate and mislead our people. And that was my reasoning for going ahead and having this live. I anticipated doing it earlier during the week. However, I had some things come up. I have and I wanted to make sure that this is done and that it's out here on the Freedman channel, so you can go back and reference it at any point in time. And I will make sure that all of the links are provided so that you can go and read for yourself. You can go research for yourself and how Freedman is the way to go. And right now, we have a great opportunity before us that has aligned for us to get into our rightful position and make sure that we have our own. And that's a Freedman, Bureau of Freedmen Affairs agency. And we're not lumped in with everybody else as a minority, underserved, disadvantaged. Forget all of that. We're freedmen. And we have a right to self-identify. We have a right to life, liberty, and our pursuit of our happiness here on this soil and our land. So with that, you all, I'm going to get ready. Oh, I dropped my notes. I'm going to get ready to shut it down. I think I went over everything. I do have an announcement. There is videos on the Freedman channel. I posted some videos on the Freedman channel that I want you all to take a look at. We had the interview with Miss Tamia and Tim Woods about their son, James, Do It for James Foundation and sextortion. And right now you may hear about how the FBI is looking at crimes that are happening on social media. And one of them is the 764 criminal, I think it's like an international criminal crime syndicate that is targeting our children, and it's utilizing sextortion. So they get them to post pictures of them in compromising ways, meaning nude or doing certain things, where they're showing body parts and things of that nature. And then they attempt to extort our children for money. And then it usually backfires in ways that it is unhealthy, mentally unhealthy for our children. And more of these young adults are committing suicide because of this happening, right? So we want to acknowledge that and make sure that we're educating our community and our people about that, because a great deal of our children are online, even in school. I don't particularly like it for them to be online in school, but it's happening. And so with that, she just testified. Ms. Tamia Woods just testified at the U.S. Senate hearing about sextortion. So there's an actual interview on the Freedman channel that you can see. And then you can also go and watch her testimony at the U.S. Senate hearing. The other videos is that we have an interview with Mark King Carter. It's a short, brief one, but we're going to get back to it. We're going to have some more with Mark King Carter. He'll always be coming back. We know we need him out here, and he's doing great work in Chicago, along with the ladies of Chicago Flips Red. Again, they are the ones that gave me this t-shirt, and I love it, and I'm representing today. And so you have the testimony of Danielle Carter, and she's testifying again, the U.S. Senate Judiciary hearing about what is happening in Chicago with immigration and the impact of illegal aliens in their communities and what's happening with their local and state government. Okay, so check that out as well. And then I just did an interview with Miss Tara Frazier, and Miss Tara is a part of the workforce labor organizations and programs that are being implemented in our neighborhoods and in our communities. So then you can reach out to her or at least watch the interview, and she tells you and gives you some resources so that our youth can be a part of these programs where they can begin to work during the summertime. They can be involved. They can gain mentorship and things of that nature. So I wanted to make sure you all were aware of that. And with that, I'm going to get ready to sign off. I really appreciate you all joining me. I like to do these short, brief podcasts because we know our attention span can be really short, and even this can be long for some people. So with that, I am happy that you were able to join me. Please, please, please share. Go out, educate our people. This is where we're at right now. And next year, we'll have the actual ruling on the interpretation of the 14th Amendment. And we want to make sure that we're all aligned and know, or I should say, all aligned, and we're all understanding, right, the 14th Amendment and how we can then all come together and make sure we get our Office of Freedmen Affairs or our Borough of Freedmen Affairs. So that's where I'm at. And with that, you all, I am going to sign off, and I'm going to say love, peace, happiness, and reparations.